Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, which take place over the phone. They are 1-hour sessions where you and I engage in beautiful, intimate, divine conversation. And I bring forward the angels for you, and you have an opportunity to connect with the divine guidance that is present for you. And if you're ever guided to book a session, you are welcome to contact me. You can contact me through my website, illuminatingsouls.com, and typically I can schedule you in within a few days' time. I also offer soul mentoring, which provides for ongoing support as you move through a time of growth, awakening, or transition. And then I offer a variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. I have a new class that starts just about every 6 weeks. It's always something a little different. My classes are intimate in size, so you will absolutely have time to engage. We'll get a chance to be together and get to know each other better. And I love getting to facilitate my classes, so sign up for my mailing list and then you'll be in the know of what comes next. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you come into a lovely, sweet space of rest. I have been listening to sleep podcasts since at least 2015, if not earlier. And over the years, they have really become a source of comfort for me, and they help to build a bridge between my waking self and that beautiful, mysterious drifting off into a good night's sleep. And that is why I create this podcast for you. You are joining a very sweet, intimate group of listeners scattered around the world. And I am so deeply grateful for this opportunity to be here with you. I know some of you listen during your waking hours because it's an opportunity for me to keep you company as you go about your day. And others of you use it as a sleep tool. So if you are using it to go to sleep, my recommendation is you turn the volume down lower than you would if you were listening to an audiobook. This way, at some point, this will just become a mumbling sound in your peripheral consciousness that you can let go of as you drift off to sleep. There will be no sudden noises. There will be no difficult conversations. We're going to keep this flowy and light and soothing and loving for you. And as I shared, the angels are here too, and they bring such loving, soothing, light-filled energy forward for you. that even though I am recording this knowing that many people will listen, the energy you receive in the broadcast is calibrated for you. That the angels know what is happening in your life, they know the truth of your heart, and they bring forward love energy that is calibrated specifically for you. It's one of the things I find so fascinating about working with angelic energy, is it knows where we are. There is a beautiful intimacy that comes from working with the angels. As I often say in my sessions and in my classes, my intention is to help you build your relationship with the angels. Yes, I love helping you connect with them. I love getting to serve as a channel and a messenger for angelic love. But you get to take the angels home with you. This connection is yours. And it is deeply intimate and loving and present for you. Your angels have known you since before you were born into this dimension. They understand you. They get you. And they're here to support you. So I invite you to take a nice deep breath in. And let's call ourselves forward into the heart of God. And if God is not your word or concept, into the heart of the universe, into the heart of the Creator, whatever term or concept works best for you. And I will invite the angels to be with us now. And beautiful angels on high, I rejoice in the opportunity to gather together in sacred circle with you in service to the beloveds that are hearing this message. And angels, I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love, with healing light, with calming, soothing energies to assist each one of us in bringing this nourishment, this loving essence into our physical bodies so that we can relax, bringing these beautiful energies into our mind so that we can calm our thoughts, and bringing this beautiful love into our hearts so that we can come into a place of well-being. And dear ones, just take some nice deep breaths in, allowing this love to meet you where you are. And just imagine, visualize, allowing it to be so, that the angels are filling the space you are in with a beautiful, soft, pink light that is filled with love for you. And it blesses and soothes everything in your space, including you. And just breathe, allowing your body and your mind and your heart to receive the love that is here for you. There are so many things that I love about working with the angels, and one of them is this beautiful energy. Even if you don't feel it, imagine it. Imagine the most loving presence in the universe, broadcasting here and now for you. The angels have such deep compassion and understanding for your experience here in life. And they send you love and prayers and sparks of inspiration. And just breathe. So I have a creative project that I have been working with for the past few months. And I hadn't really been ready to share about it, but I'm guided to share about it with you now. And it is absolutely angel related. So, my friends, I have created an Earth Angels Oracle deck. Now, before you get really excited, it's not for sale yet. I am still in the process of attuning to the best way to have it printed and available. But I did receive a proof deck, and the cards are so beautiful. I'm really looking forward to sharing them with you. And the reason I'm bringing it up in this episode is because I pulled 3 cards for us from the deck. And I want to share the reading with you because it feels profoundly empowering and appropriate to where so many of us are right now. So perhaps I can share with you my sense on where many of us who are empaths and light workers are. We are in a place of doing our best to stay balanced. I don't know how many of you went to a carnival that would have had a fun house when you were younger. But I remember going into these fun houses and everything was distorted. Everything was designed to be off balance, right? So there would be the mirrors that would show you a distorted version of yourself. And there would be walkways that would jiggle and move, and you would have to try and stay balanced. And that is what this energy feels like that we are in, and we have been in it for quite a while, and I suspect we are going to be in it for some time to come. And part of this journey is how do we stay balanced when everything feels like it is keeping us off kilter. So this is the 3-card reading I pulled from my deck that I hope to be able to share with you soon. The first card is Answered Prayer. And the message says, your angels have received your prayers. Love and resources are flowing to you now. So just breathe that message in. And then the second card is the Wise One card. And the message says, connect with the ancient wisdom that seeks to commune with you. It's a reminder that we are ancient and wise beings. And this beautiful wisdom flows through us, as us, and communes with us. So to remember that you are not a novice in life. There is such wisdom in you. And then the third card is authentic power. Oh, I just love this card. And it says just what I was talking about. You are a wise and mystical being, and you are powerful beyond measure. So I'm fascinated that these three cards show up together for this reading in our episode. Answered prayer, wise one, and authentic power. It is a reminder that we are expansive beings. And I often hold for my own journey with a duality. There is the practitioner, divine self that is expansive and wise and always balanced, always connected. And then there is my earth girl, and she gets scared and overwhelmed and angry and I'm very mercurial. And I feel deeply and I ride the waves of life, not always gracefully. And so sometimes when my curriculum in life feels hard and I don't know what to do and I'm frustrated, I can try and work it through with my intellect. I think intellect is wonderful to have. But more often than not, the answers I seek will be found by communing with the greater expanse of all that I am, with my practitioner, divine, wise self. And this reading reminds me of this. There are a couple things in life right now that had me a little off kilter. Actually, one is, how am I going to bring this deck to you? I thought I had my answer, and now I'm not sure that I do. And there are several different options on the table. And it's not about figuring it out. It's about attuning to what is going to be best for you and for the life of this beautiful deck that has been birthed. So I love this reading. Answered prayer, wise one, authentic power. It is a reminder that whatever we are navigating, it is this reminder that the bright light of the divine is within us and around us, and our angels are here supporting us. So we can lift our head up, we can breathe deeply, knowing that God's got this handled, that the answers, the soul whispers, the sparks of inspiration, and the resources will flow. So I invite you to take another deep breath in, allowing the love of the angels to meet you in this breath and in the next. And I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in if you are planning on drifting off to sleep. The angels will stay with you, loving you throughout this broadcast and beyond. And if you have any prayers or intentions, requests that you wish to share with the angels, you can do so now or whenever you are guided. And I invite you to rest. And while you rest, I'm going to tell you a story. You know, there are so many things that I love about creating this podcast for you. And one of them is that I get to share different stories from my life, little snippets. And I was inspired to do this because one of the sleep podcasts that I listen to, Sleep With Me by Andrew Ackerman, every once in a while he does episodes where he shares little snippets of his life. And these are by far my favorite episodes that he does, because I feel like I'm hanging out with a friend. Like we're going out for lunch and we're sharing different moments of our lives with each other. And it brings me great comfort. And the other thing is, 2022 was a year where I really discovered the joy of storytelling. And not only crafting a story, but how all of our experiences can be stored and then accessed in consciousness, that each one of us, our consciousness stores our memories differently, but that a single prompt sometimes can take us down the rabbit hole and unlock lovely memories that maybe we hadn't thought about in years. For instance, if I were to ask you, did you ever get to go to the circus as a child? And what was that like for you? Or how did you know that it was summer? What were your summers like as a kid? Now, not everybody can access their memories in this way. We're all wired differently. But maybe prompts like this open a treasure chest for you. And in conversation with two of my girlfriends this week, a part of my treasure chest opened when my friend Amy reflected that she'd always really wanted to have a Jeep. And as she was talking about the Jeep and the freedom of a Jeep, my rabbit hole opened. And I was connected with all of my experiences with Jeeps in my life and how symbolic they have been for me. And so I'm borrowing from my friend Amy, and I'm using my memories of Jeeps to serve as a gateway into our story time in this episode. And no, I've never owned a Jeep, but that's okay. That's besides the point. So to start my story, I'm going to share with you about where I was in my life when I was moving from Chicago to Los Angeles. So it was 1985. I was 23 years old. And I had been a broadcast materials coordinator or manager at WFLD TV in Chicago. And I had wanted to move to Los Angeles. I loved LA. I hadn't been there, but I had seen plenty of it, right? Rose Parade, Brady Bunch. I mean, television. You grow up with Los Angeles as part of your extended neighborhood, even if you'd never traveled there. And so in March of that year, I planned a trip with two of my girlfriends that I worked with at the TV station. And we went to LA, and March in LA can be so beautiful because there's no smog and the skies are clear and you can see the mountains, and it is just divine that time of year. And here's my Jeep related story. My girlfriends and I, we were in our rental car driving down Sunset. We were going from Hollywood into West Hollywood, so we were going from east to west. I don't know why that's important. And we were looking all around, right? Because it's Sunset Boulevard. Having never been in LA before, that was a big deal. And this super cute guy in a Jeep with its doors off pulls up next to us. And he does this hair flip. He had this long, luxurious brown hair, like feathered, right? It's the 80s. That beautiful feathered hair. And he kind of did this head shake and he ran his hand through his hair and he was wearing sunglasses. And I said to my girlfriends, oh my God, he is so cute. Right, so we're excited because we're, in our early 20s, cute guy, Jeep. And all of a sudden we realize it's John James from Dynasty, which you may not know who he was, or he is. I'm sure he's still around. But it was John James from Dynasty. Like the first cute guy in a Jeep we see is John James from Dynasty. So we were cool. We didn't scream out at him or anything like that. But we, of course, giggled for the next 6 miles that we just saw John James from Dynasty in his Jeep, and that was so cool. If you've never lived in a place like LA and you're starstruck, I can't even express to you the joy of seeing celebrities in their ordinary life. I mean, maybe not so much anymore because we're so inundated with social media and paparazzi and TMZ. But back in the 80s, it was super cool. So we had a wonderful trip to LA, and then I had to go back to Chicago, right? We all had to go home. It was also on that trip that I met my cousins, the Bleadon clan from LA, and I share about that in the episode called Unexpected Family. And I also met my contacts who worked at the different studios, which would ultimately lead to me getting a job in LA. But we go back to Chicago, and it's one of those bitter, cold Marches in Chicago. And the wind chill factor was 85 degrees below zero, which is so cold. And the wind was blowing, and where I commuted to, I had to get off the train and walk across the bridge that ran across the Chicago River to get to Marina City, which is the corn cob building that maybe you have seen in the Blues Brothers, which is where the TV station was. And I could hardly walk across the river because the wind was so strong and so cold. And in that moment, I thought, I'm not living here. I need to move. And so I really began to kind of visualize my life in LA. And this was before I knew about visualization and law of attraction, but I just began dreaming of it. And part of my dream was that I would have a Jeep. I was sold on this whole Jeep idea. And that you could have no doors and no roof and just sort of be out. And the elements was so cool to me, especially in LA where there aren't many elements to have to guard against. It wasn't 85 degrees below zero there. It was beautiful. And I dreamed of having a guest house in Laurel Canyon. I had read a lot of Judith Krantz at that point, and so a guest house in Laurel Canyon sounded lovely, and I would have 2 dogs. That was the dream. And none of that came to pass. But that didn't matter, right? Dreams sometimes show up just so that they can bring us wings, so that they can expand our awareness of what is possible for us. And we move towards the dream and something else happens, but it still moves us beyond where we were before the dream found us. So I didn't get the guest house in Laurel Canyon. I did for a year live on Laurel Avenue, which was close to Laurel Canyon, but I was in the flats in West Hollywood. I didn't get 2 dogs, but I did get 1 dog, and then my cousin got a dog and we lived together. So in essence, I did have 2 dogs. And my dream was that I would have a big dog and a small dog, and that's what happened. We had Tessa and Mike. Mike was a smaller dog and Tessa was a bigger dog. And I didn't have a Jeep, but I had friends with Jeeps. So it's so interesting that little elements of my dream found me over the years. So I will also share, in case you find this interesting, when I was working at the television station in Chicago, I think I was making about $13,000 a year, which was not a lot of money back then either. It was a very low wage and it was very hard to make ends meet. My parents had helped me buy my first car, which was a Pontiac T1000, which was the corporate twin to the Chevy Chevette, which was the base car, right? The car you buy if you don't have money to buy a car. It was a hatchback. It was red. It was a stick shift, which was not a great thing. Its one perk is that it had air conditioning. So thank God for that. I think the car cost $4,000 or $5,000. We bought it new. My parents paid for part of it. And then my car payment was $103 a month. So just a little bit about my finances back then. Then I was so excited because when I got offered the job at Goldwyn, which is a whole other story, my salary went up to $20,000 a year. And I was so excited. I was running around the TV station telling everybody, I'm going to make $20,000 a year. Until my boss just laughed. He was a really nice guy. And he said, that's so tacky, Laurel. Don't tell everybody how much you're earning. I said, I know, John, but I'm so excited. That's a livable wage. Because back then it was. I mean, I wasn't going to be living high on the hog, but I could survive on that kind of money back then. So I get the job, and now I have to move to Los Angeles. And I have to find a place to live. And remember, no internet, no Craigslist. We had newspapers. And I don't remember who suggested this to me. It may have been a coworker. But someone suggested that I go to UCLA and go to their housing board and take a look at the listings where people were looking for roommates. So it was sort of, one of those big cork boards, and people used push pins and they would put up their notices. Looking for a roommate, this is how much. And which was a brilliant idea. I was 23 years old, so living with college students wasn't too far away from my demographic, right? I hadn't outgrown that phase of my life yet. And so I went there, and there were a couple of different listings that I had written down. And I also recall I don't remember if it was one guy or two guys. I don't know if they had met each other at that point, but I met these two guys at the housing board that wound up becoming roommates. They wound up getting a single in Venice, right on the beach. And I became friends with them. So it's almost like my first two friendships were seeded in that moment. And I was just trying to remember how on earth we would have gotten in touch with each other, because at that point I didn't have a phone. There were no cell phones then. But somehow we got in touch with each other again. I don't know how that would have happened, but we did, and we became friends, and I really enjoyed them. They were really lovely. They hadn't known each other. They had met at the housing board or something like that. Anyways, these are old memories from my memory bank, but they were just very sweet. And it was interesting how that pilgrimage to the housing board had already started paying dividends. So one of the postings was for a townhouse in West LA on Bundy, for anybody who knows LA. And it was the one I really wanted. So there were 3 bedrooms. And I was so lucky that the person who had posted chose me. I was so relieved. I was like, oh, thank God, I have a place to live. It's on the 2nd floor, so I felt a little safer. Not that I had to be scared, but there was weird stuff happening in LA back then. And so that was awesome. So I now have a place to live. And what I didn't know at the time was the guys who lived in the unit next to us were 3 guys who were college students. They had all known each other from Beverly Hills High School. They'd all gone to Beverly. And they would become like some of my best friends. And they were 3 guys who were a year or 2 younger than me, I think. And they were definitely in their wild, college-aged stage of life. And 2 of them had Jeeps. So this is where the Jeep thread comes in. And they just really kind of became like best buddies. Like they became family. And it was such a blessing because I had moved to LA and didn't really know anybody. I had just recently met my cousins. You know, I kind of knew some coworkers. And then I moved next door to these 3 exuberant, friendly, warm-hearted guys who immediately took me in as one of theirs. I don't know how it was for you at that age stage, but for me, we were sort of this growing organism of friends. And we kept folding people in and folding people in. So there were the 3 guys who lived next door, who I became very, very close with. And then my cousin Susie, who I had started really building a friendship and connection with, and introduced her to the 3 guys. And it wasn't just the 3 guys, it was their whole friend pod from Beverly Hills High School. And so there were all these guys who had gone to high school together that we became friends with. And then other people got folded in. And then there were the friends that I had made working at Goldwyn, which got folded into the friend group. And so we had this extended pod of friends. And it was wonderful because whenever you wanted to go out, there was a group of people that wanted to go, right? Wherever we wanted to go, there was a group of us that moved along. We moved en masse. And at that age stage, that was just so wonderful. And one of the guys who lived next door, his name is Keith. And Keith is just one of the most generous-hearted, warm, exuberant people ever, especially at that age. And he really took me under his wing. Like wherever he went, I got to go. And so I always felt like I belonged. And belonging is one of my core values. Like to have a group of people where I belong is so powerful. And so Keith had a Jeep. And the doors in the top would come off of it. And so, you know, wherever we would go, he would drive and I got to be in the Jeep. And then there would be times he would go out of town and he would let me borrow his Jeep. Because we were young. You could just borrow a friend's car then. Yeah, just take my car. I don't care. Whereas now, I probably wouldn't do that. And I just remember getting to drive to and from Goldwyn in Keith's Jeep. With no doors, no top, because that was the best feeling. Like, who needed doors? We didn't need doors. And just the freedom of it, playing my music, feeling the wind in my hair, feeling no boundaries kind of between me and the world. And I loved the way it felt so much. And what a sweet guy to let me borrow his Jeep, just it's part of my memories now. And the thing that I was commenting on to my girlfriends this week is that now that doesn't sound good at all. I drive a very popular compact SUV, and it has a sunroof, which is never, ever, ever open. I don't even slide the screen back so the sun can come in. I want to be hermetically sealed in my vehicle so that I don't know that other people and society are around me. I don't drive with my window down. It's so funny to me that I was once the girl who wanted to just be driving out in the open, free. And I've become the me that wants to be sealed in my vehicle. I want to just, everything closed. I don't want to hear the outside noise. I don't want to know who's next to me. I want my space. And I think it is so funny how life morphs us into who we are now. I was this freedom-loving girl in my 20s. And I loved being in the middle of the action. I loved being with my group of friends. And we traveled en masse then. We would go to Palm Springs. We would go to Vegas. And there would be 6 or 7 of us sharing a hotel room. You'd step on somebody, they were sleeping on the floor. And we didn't care. We just all really loved each other. And we held space for each other. I remember there was this one time I had a conflict with one of my coworkers. He was very mercurial, and he had decided that I was the root of his unhappiness at work, and he lashed out at me in a really rageful, awful way. And it was way before I have the strength of heart that I have now, because if that happened now, I would handle it very differently. But then I didn't really have much of a life skill to know what to do there. And I remember one of my friends at work who was in the meeting that went badly, he called up our other friends who I lived next door to and said, Laurel's had a really, really bad day. We need to take care of her. And I came home, and Keith came out, and he was, at the time, him or someone else in the group was dating a girl from Italy who had another friend with her from Italy. And they came over to our house and cooked the most delicious dinner. And they all just were kind to me and took care of me. And isn't that beautiful how an act of kindness all those years ago can still create warmth? Like, I remember the warmth and the kindness of my friends taking care of me more than the trauma of this guy raging at me. Like, it was terrible that he raged at me, but then my friends took care of me. Like, I had people who loved me, and they cared about me, and I cared about them. So we were really loyal to each other and took good care of each other. And I shared with you in another episode, my cousin and I always laugh because one of the restaurants we all loved to go to was the Cheesecake Factory, the one in Marina Del Rey. And this was before the Cheesecake Factory is the Cheesecake Factory now. I mean, it was still the same Cheesecake Factory with the ginormous menu and the big food. but it wasn't a national chain yet. So, and we always traveled in big groups. So I suppose if just my cousin and I had gone to the Cheesecake Factory, it might be easier to get a table on a Saturday night. But we would be like 10 people. And we would go to the Cheesecake Factory and we would ask for a table. We'd get there maybe 7:30 or 8 o'clock, because who went for dinner before 7:30 or 8 o'clock back then? And there would be 10 or 12 of us, and we'd want a table at the Cheesecake Factory, and we would have to wait 2 hours. And we didn't care. We were like, yeah, we'll wait. And we would just hang out and visit with each other and eventually get seated, and probably didn't start eating till 10 o'clock. And we didn't care. We were young. It was the weekend. What else were we going to do? And we'd always order way too much food and way too much drinks, and then try to figure out the bill, and it never would balance out. So one of the guys would always have to pull out, an extra $60 to cover the rest. It was always the same story when we went out. But we had a great time. I mean, I really had a great time at that age of my life. And at some point, we planned a trip to Chicago, because I wanted to take the guys to Chicago and my cousin to Chicago. And so a bunch of us went to Chicago, and we got a hotel room downtown, which was great. And then we went to the bar scene in Chicago, which was amazing. And we went to Cubs games, which was phenomenal. So I have so many beautiful memories. The other thing I was remembering is Keith's mom had a beach house in Santa Monica. And so we would often go there, and there was a pool, and then you could go out the gate and you'd be right on the beach. And it was a wonderful place where we would get to hang out. And he would throw parties there. We would just go and hang out there, and that was really awesome. So I feel like I got to live a really expanded expression of life. And that happened because I moved next door to these 3 guys. And they were just wonderful. I don't know what my life in LA would have been like had that serendipity not happened. And we've all drifted apart. I'm Facebook friends with a few of them, but I don't necessarily connect with them on a regular basis anymore. Although one of the guys from the group, he wasn't one of the roommates, but he was one of the friends. He still does my taxes all these years later. His name is Bobby, and he's been doing my taxes since I was in my 20s. And he's such a good guy. They were all such good guys. And there were girls in the group too. I was thinking about all the guy friends. And it was so much fun because my cousin Susie was a part of that group, and we all just took good care of each other, and we went places together, and we would get in trouble together, but not horrible trouble, just, we would be reckless in our 20s, and had a lot of fun. So it's one of those times in my life where I think everything went right. The way I got the job in LA, meeting those other 2 friends that I made at the housing board, moving next door to Keith and his friends, and then getting to know everybody, folding in my cousin Susie with that group and my other friends from Goldwyn. And then we just all sort of moved through our 20s together. It was my friend Amy's recollection of her wanting a Jeep that opened this gateway for me. I mean, all those memories had been there, but as soon as she started talking about the Jeep, I felt myself in Keith's Jeep and how alive it made me feel and how much fun it was. and how happy I was whenever I got to be in the Jeep, either as a passenger or as a driver. And how interesting it is to me that these days I wouldn't want one. I wouldn't want to travel open. I wouldn't want to have a convertible. I won't even open the sunroof on my car. I don't know how that happened. How did I get to be this person that I am now? You know, there's a video that is going viral on Facebook and maybe on TikTok too. I don't know, on social media, I should say. And it's of this older man. I would say he's probably, I don't know, late 60s, 70s, somewhere around there. And he's trying to remember how to skip. Someone asks him, can you skip? And he can't remember how to skip. Like his body forgot. And it's adorable. He's adorable. And it's such a funny video. And I was thinking, I don't even know that I can still skip. I used to love to skip. I don't think my body could handle the impact on my ankles. Can I even remember how to skip? And I think it's one of the fascinating things of aging is that we change so much over the years. I was a girl who wanted to be in the open air Jeep, right high above the traffic, everything open. I didn't care about sunscreen back then. We didn't know about sunscreen. We put on suntan lotion. Like roast and bake me. We didn't know about sunscreen. And just loved that freedom. I loved getting to go to the beach. I loved getting to go into the ocean. I didn't mind being in traffic. It didn't matter. And so perhaps this episode will bring you back to some of your times in your younger years when maybe you felt that sense of freedom. Perhaps you had a lovely group of friends back then who embraced you and brought you into the fold. And so I look back on that part of my life with such fondness and gratitude. Somehow the universe brought me together with really good people. And they were people who accepted me and brought me into their family. And I brought them into mine. That's the way it should be. And so I just am here in gratitude for all of the beautiful big experiences I have had in my life. That even if I am the girl now who likes to be in my very, very safe, quiet vehicle, I am glad I was once the girl who loved driving in a Jeep. So that is my story time for you in this episode. Perhaps you are asleep by now. If not, and you want some more episodes, there are plenty in the archive. I think this is my 158th episode. I think that's right. So there's lots out there. So thank you for letting me spend this time with you. I love you very much. And I wish you sweet dreams. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.